I have to do homework today. And so I am not going to be doing probably another video, but I also forgot when I did the Adam and Eve. What is agape? That's right behind me. A couple people pointed it out. They're like, it's funny when looked it up when it's right behind you. Yeah, I'm just so used to seeing it back there, I don't pay attention. But yes, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. I'm reading it backwards right now. Love does not delight in evil. Yeah. But rejoices with the truth. And now I can't see. Love always protects, love always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. There we go. That's agape behind me. So people pointed that out, but it was funny. I did ask in the video yesterday because I think it's interesting to get other people's viewpoints. Is like, if you think there should have been something differently done, what specifically do you think should have been done? And is that in accordance with agape? And the reason I ask about agape is because that is the husband's role in the marriage covenant. And we talk about how Adam was part of two marriage covenants, one with God and one with Eve. And the husband's duty is to love, in the agape sense, the wife. So what should he have done? And would that have been in accordance with agape? And there were a few people who responded, so grateful for that. What I did a note that in these responses was that Adam should have been able to discern the serpent's intent and stop it. And discernment is actually something that we're taught about in Hebrews. On the spiritual maturity journey in Hebrews 5, it's the progression from milk to meat. Where are you, Hebrews? Hebrews 5. But strong meat belongeth to them that are full of age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. So I think what we're looking at is thinking that Adam should have been able to discern a problem and act accordingly, but discernment is belonging to those who are full of age, which Adam wasn't. He was technically about 8 days old. And by reason of use have their senses exercised. Well, this is part of what we learn about in Romans 5. It says, we glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation worketh patience, patience experience. So you're talking about having your senses exercised through experience, and experience hope. So the ability to discern both good and evil comes through the experience that gives you the ability to discern. So you're talking about experiential knowledge, ability to discern relating to good and evil. Adam did not have the capacity for experiential knowledge because he wasn't able to discern between good and evil because he had not experienced tribulation. Tribulation works patience, patience experience, and experience hope. And it's the experience that allows you to be able to discern between good and evil. Adam and Eve had not yet eaten of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So they had a status quo. The status quo said, God created everything and it was very good. So you don't have the ability to discern between that which you don't even have the ability to recognize. This was like God created Adam and Eve as very naive people who understood a status quo of being very good. But good and evil are comparative terms. They did not have the ability to discern between, to compare, because there was no experiential knowledge. We look at this same concept respective to old and new covenants in Daniel's time. We've gone round and round about this in Daniel 9. People saying, what is the covenant? Well, it was the covenant of record in Daniel's time, which was the Mosaic covenant. Today, we would call it the Old Covenant because there's a new covenant. Old and new are comparative terms. Hebrews 8:13 explains this and saying, new he hath made the first old. So it's not an old covenant until there's a new to replace it, because old and new are comparative terms. So in Daniel's time, there's no comparison. It is just the status quo. Also, when you're talking about first and second covenants, that's what Hebrews also calls the old and new covenants. It's first and second. But you wouldn't call it a first unless there is also a second. It's just a covenant. So it's not an old covenant unless there's a new. It's not a first covenant unless there is a second. First and second are comparative terms. Old and new are comparative terms. Good and evil are comparative terms. And you don't understand the comparison except through experiential knowledge. They didn't have experiential knowledge to discern because they had not yet eaten the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Once they did, then they understood the difference, the existence of evil, through experiential knowledge. They understood by comparison, there's good and there's evil, and we just did a really bad thing. So we're looking at this from Adam, and we can call them absolutely naive. There's no other way to put it. It's called the age of innocence. Innocence in its purest form is you would not suspect anything evil because you don't even know that evil exists. And so it was just interesting to look at this, to hear some, or to read some of the feedback. Say, well, Adam should have done this or should have done that. But how would he have known to do that? Because he had not yet eaten of the fruit of the tree that would have given him the understanding that, hey, this bad thing exists, I need to be on guard. Age of innocence is what it's called between the time that they were created and the time that they fell, which is presumably about 8 days. Adam was 8 days old. He was just a wee babe. We, I think, have a tendency to look at this through the lens of what we know and our perspective without the ability to really even understand what it is they were going through because we just lack that kind of innocence. Would that it were, but we just lack that kind of innocence. And we say, well, he should have done this and he should have done that. But that's based on our own experiential reference point, being able to discern and understand that evil exists, which he was incapable of doing at that time. However, immediately after they ate the fruit of the tree, he became aware that evil does exist, and he became aware that he did a really bad thing. He knew what he was doing when he did it, and that's another thing, is there were two concepts I said that probably because they're perfect concepts is we lack total understanding of until such a time as we're glorified. Agape, perfect other-focused sacrificial love. Agape is what Adam was required, as the husband in the marriage covenant is required to show to the wife. It's sacrificial love. He gave something, he sacrificed for her. In that capacity, he ate the fruit and he died for her. Not that day, but his life had an expiration date after that. And the concept of one flesh. It is a perfect union. Not physically, although that too, because they were given the command to populate the earth. Why are words failing me? He's blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. So Adam had to do what he did to retain the one flesh union, because she would have been kicked out. He could have stayed, but then how would they have fulfilled the command to reproduce and multiply, replenish the earth? They wouldn't have. So that would have been another failure of obedience to God by not fulfilling God's command to create more human beings, replenish the earth, because it was also through childbearing that the Redeemer would come. So he had to do that, because if he didn't, he would have, and I'm assuming he understood the implications of this when he had the fruit right up to his mouth and said, do I take a bite of it or don't I? Yeah, I have to because of these reasons. One of them was love. The other was one flesh, but the other was to be able to facilitate completion of the command to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And then obviously through childbearing, the Redeemer would come. There are many other implications, but he would have destroyed everything if he had chosen not to agape her and sacrifice his life for her. Everything else would have been ruined. I'm sure that Adam realized that. I'm sure that he had much more insight into all of those perfect concepts than we do, because he was at that time perfect and made the willful choice to eat the fruit and fall with her because of the other implications that would have borne out. So it's just interesting to consider, but this is a reference point that we don't have. We will have in the future, but we don't have, and a lot of the reasoning of what Adam should have done is based on experiential knowledge, the ability to discern between good and evil, which he did not have. And he got but he did not have prior to eating the fruit. And then he had it. And then the first thing they experienced was fear and shame. They were aware that they were naked. They became shamed and hid themselves. Well, shame is a result of uncovered sin. So what did God do? He covered their sin. He sacrificed the blood of the lamb and clothed them with the lambskin, forward looking to the final sacrifice of Christ, which is covering a multitude of sins. God demonstrated his love toward us, and that while we are yet sinners, Christ died for us, and that love, charity, covers a multitude of sins. So God, as the husband in the marriage covenant with Adam, clothed the shame of their nakedness with the skin of the lamb. That was his demonstration of agape. So Adam agape'd Eve and died for her, and then God agape'd Adam and covered the shame of his nakedness. And that is what Jesus does for us. So it was all part of God's foreknowledge and plan. There's nothing different that Adam could have done. That's what innocence is. It's unsuspecting. It's trusting. That is one of the reasons why Satan will be bound during the millennial kingdom, is so that perfect creation cannot fall again. It's also part of the reason why there will be no marrying or given in marriage in the resurrection, in the regeneration, when the Son of Man comes. It will be as the angels, not angels, but as them, meaning no marriage or given in marriage. We will never have conflicting loyalties like Adam did. Do I choose Eve or do I choose God? You'll never have the ability to have conflicting loyalties again. There are remedies for what happened in the garden, and these are just some of them. But it's just interesting to consider, should Adam have done something different, and what do we think he should have done? Is that consistent with agape? And everything that I read was consistent with, well, he should have been able to identify it and mitigate it. How do you identify it without knowledge that it even exists? Such as the age of innocence. I'll see you guys later.